Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be working on building a berry trellis. We have a row of raspberries here. They tend to grow really tall, fall over, and the fruit will get damaged or the bush will get damaged in the process, and even propagate bushes where I don't want them to grow. So I want them to be in the upright position and held there. So I'm going to be building this nice trellis to go over top and hold them in place. This would work really well for really any raspberry or black raspberry plants, or even decorative flowering bushes that need more strength to grow. I've put together some build plans. If you guys are interested, you can go visit my Etsy page. I have them available there. Along with those build plans, there's a list of tools you'll need, materials, cut list, and step-by-step illustrations and descriptions on how to put this trellis together. If you're interested in getting that, I'll leave the link here on the screen as well as in the description of this video. You can go check that out. To start, I'm going to be digging 2 holes for the posts on either end of the row of raspberries I have here. I'm digging those holes about 2 feet deep, and then I'm going to use a post level and make sure that those posts are plumb. So once you have the level on it, you can start filling the hole and making sure that the post stays plumb while you pack the dirt in. Next, I'm going to take a 2x6 for across the top of the trellis, and I know both of these posts are 4 feet high off of the ground because I buried them 2 feet deep. I want to line this 2x6 up with the top of the 4x4s, but it's on a slight angle, so I'm going to hold the 2x6 up into place and then mark the backside on that 4x4 so I know exactly where I need to cut and what angle. Because I'm working alone, I can't hold the board and fasten it at the same time, so I'm gonna put a block on one side to hold the 2x6, and then I'll hold the other side and screw it in place. Then I'll come back, remove the block, and fasten that side as well. To hold that in place, I'm using 2 lag screws on each side. They're 6 inches long, so they'll go straight through the 4x4 into that top 2x6 beam. Next, I'll do the same thing, only with a 2x4, and this is at the halfway point from the top of the trellis to the ground. And I'll hold it in place, mark it, cut it, put it back, and fasten in place with 2 6-inch lag screws on each end. I have here a regular cattle fencing panel. I'm going to take some bolt cutters and cut them to size. I need 2 panels, one for the top, it's a bit longer and wider, and then I need a narrower one to go along that bottom 2x4. But before we attach this to the trellis, I have one more step to cut some cross beams and mount those onto the top of the trellis before we can put these in place. Next, I'm going to be cutting some cross beams to go on top of the trellis, and this will add some stability to that top cattle panel, but in my opinion, it also makes the trellis look a lot nicer. You could cut these just at a square angle, but I'm going to put a little bit of a 45 on the end of each of these to make it look a little nicer. I'll be cutting 2 longer ones for on each end of the trellis, and then for the middle I'll need 4 half cross beams to go on either side of that 2x6 beam. I'll start by attaching the end cross beams first, and I'll be using 4 3-inch long deck screws to hold that in place. Then I'll attach 2 half cross beams across from each other along that 2x6 beam. And to find the right spot, I'm just going to be splitting the distance across here into thirds so that I can figure out exactly where those cross beams need to go. And to fasten these in place, I'm going to be using three 3-inch long deck screws to screw through the 2x6 beam into those cross beams. The first one you put on, you can screw directly straight through. The second one, you kind of have to toenail it at an angle to get past that first cross beam. So now the frame of the trellis is finished, I'm going to attach the cattle panels on top of this trellis. The large one goes on the top, and I'm going to be stapling that down with some fencing staples about every foot. I'll be putting staples into that main beam across the middle, as well as the cross beams to give it a little bit more stability. Next, I'm going to be taking that smaller cattle panel and stapling that down to the 2x4 beam about every foot again to hold that in place. This smaller cattle panel really won't hold much weight. It's really just there to guide the new cane growth each year that will grow straight up out of the ground. It will guide it straight up through that first cattle panel, and then most of the weight will be on that top cattle panel. Once it grows up past, that will give it the stability and hold it so it doesn't fall over and break. To finish this up, I'm going to add some edging from my sawmill. These are all excess, just the trimmings off of the logs with all the bark. I'm going to be putting that around the trellis, keep the weeds out, and also hold in some of that moisture. Once I'm done with that, I'm also going to add a little bit of mulch over top of the soil so that no weeds grow up in between these bushes. It took a little less mulch than I thought it was going to, and you really don't want to put a huge thick layer of mulch or else you might kill the cane as it's trying to grow up through each year. So I'm just going to put a bit of that mulch around each of my fruit trees around there. It needed some more mulch anyways. Now that the berry trellis is done, I'm going to be leading all of the new growth through that first layer of the trellis, and once it gets long enough, I'll also lead it through the top to hold it in place. This was several months ago, and you can see there's lots of raspberries on this already, but once you pick the raspberries, the plant will really take off. It's starting to build up for the next year. Everything will be new, green stems growing. That's the first year cane that will grow berries next year. After harvesting the berries, I went through and cut off all of the second year cane that's starting to turn brown. That will die off over the winter or won't produce any fruit the next year. That will also encourage new cane to grow up through the trellis for the next year. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, hit that like button down below and don't forget to leave a comment or subscribe to the channel if you have not already. If you're interested in those build plans, those are down in the description. Go check those out, and I'll see you guys in the next one.